Hello, everybody, and welcome to another list video here. I'm joined by Daniel from Quick Learner.
Hello.
This is the second time that we've said hello because I messed up recording this video, but we're also recording all day, so there's a lot of content coming from both of us on each of our channels. We're having a fun time doing these collabs together.
For sure.
This video is 5 cards we want to give a second chance. I threw this as a suggestion of her video to Daniel, and I didn't realize how hard it was going to be for me to come up with stuff for this list, because everything that I want to give a second chance to, I kind of already done. An example of this, I was going through cards, I saw Blessing of Isis. I'm currently playing that with Silas Marsh and Parallel Father Mateo and having a great time with it. So I can't talk about that because I've already gave it a second chance. So for me personally with this video, my approach of it was cards that I generally disagree with online sentiment to see if maybe I'm missing something, or some cards that I legitimately do want to give it, I want to build a deck around to see if I can do something with.
Yeah, for me, I'm not a crazy person who's played all the cards, much less in a calendar year.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cards that I've looked at, and I was going through the whole card pool, and generally, I look at a few cards and I say, I still have no interest in this, so I've never given it a first chance. So I'm focusing more on cards where I've put it into a deck and it just felt like it should have done better, kind of underperformed. Most cards that I put into decks don't underperform. I'm kind of a guy who, if I'm putting something into a deck, I'm trying to make it do what it wants to do. Otherwise, I don't really give it a first shot. So it's kind of rare for me to find something that I put a card in a deck, I'm like, hey, that was pretty good. And then I'm like, this is the best card I've ever seen. I know that's not true, but it usually performs. But on the rare occasion that it doesn't, it's going to show up in this list, and I'll tell you a little bit about the story about why I think it was kind of poopy.
Yeah. I dig it. Also, I want to just say is I was debating doing another Play All Cards in 2025. But then I realized that, like, it's too soon because I've already played all the cards. Like, I need to, like, wait a little bit longer. But this crazy person is still thinking of more ways to be crazy, so who knows. All right, I'll start us off with my card number 5 here. So this is a card that I actually do want to build a deck around that I haven't done before. And this is the Survivor Grisly Totem. After you commit a card to a test, you get to, basically, you're going to be looping take cards, is kind of like what this card is here for. I play the the Seeker Grisly Totem a lot. I really enjoy that one. It's just like gravy on top of delicious mashed potatoes, like it's just like
value
perfect.
Upon value.
It's value upon value, right? It's just, it makes your stuff better, it replaces yourselves, it turns everything into a perception. It's like really good and nice because of that. And then the Survivor one is like, I'm here too. Notably, the Survivor fail support hasn't really seen too much of too much new cards since Stella Clark came out. Like, I got a few like drop things, like drip drop, like Lifeline, which unfortunately isn't really that good, but what it does do is it allows there's like a good foundation to explore, and I think I'm just waiting for there to be more. But I want to loop the take hearts. Another skill that's like take heart I think would be really good, because I think the only one we kind of have right now is Predestined. Yeah, which as we talked about on your channel is just like not good. It's just like, it was just not the way to do things. I think as well, like, it's kind of, Grisly Totem's kind of trapped because of Stella Clark, and I would like to do something that's not Stella Clark for that. But I think it's like we're missing like 1 or 2 pieces to really make that super interesting. Because like it could be like a fun flex deck where you build you use level 2 oops, you lose level 2 look what I found, and you do all this while also committing take heart to each of these tests each turn, so they're kind of like also the resource engine for those things, right? Like, there does seem to be like a lot of cool potential here, but I feel like for me personally, the thing holding me back and why I want to give this a second chance is that I feel like it's missing just like 1 or 2 more cards to really make it super consistent for me. But that is why I want to give it a second chance, because I think there's a really fun deck there to explore with this.
Yeah, this is a card that's not on my radar because I look at it and I say, other than take heart, I don't get it. Right? Why are you committing a card, getting extra icons with the intent of failing, right?
Yes, yeah.
Or the at least a safety net. Like, either you're trying to fail or you're not, right? I think it's such a strange thing to attach the level 0 Grisly Totem, comparing to the Seeker one where it's just, as you say, you are using the skill card and trying to pass a test. This one I'm just like, 3 XP to do what? Other than the take art thing. Take art thing is very cool, but is that what this card is supposed to be, just for that card?
And that's kind of like my issue with it, right? Like why every time I've looked, I've wanted to like do it is because is there something else? Like, is there actually something else for this? Is it like some sort of weird skill security like Silas Marsh, right? Like Silas Marsh is playable because he has that extra skill security and he can like make sure that his brute forces actually do what brute force does. Is Grisly Totem enough to be extra security for your brute forces, right? Like that's kind of like the question for it, right? And I don't know either, but maybe it is. Like I wonder if just in Silas Marsh having 2 uses of his ability is like really nice. Could you imagine like you in the Mythos phase, you use your Unrelenting, return it to your hand, you like pass a test, say for example. Then you get to your turn and you also use Unrelenting, but then return it to your hand, right? Like, is that good enough? That is 4 cards. Like, is it? Or is it enough that you don't need it? Like, that's kind of the question, like, where I'm living with Grisly Totem.
For 3 XP, the accessory slot, I feel like I'm using that for something else in Silas already.
Yeah.
Like a teddy bear?
Probably just a teddy bear, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's your number 5? It's...
Ooh, Protective Incantation. Okay, I played this once. There was a Mateo, like, seal deck way back when that I was like, okay, this might be kind of fun in TFA to seal the -5. It was just kind of okay. Mm-hmm. I felt like I could have done something else with that slot, like maybe another spell. So, it doesn't sound terrible, but then you play it and you're like, man, that's all this card did? And you don't really know the value. That's the problem with the seal cards. The other ones are kind of similar, where did you avoid drawing that offending token or not? Who knows? That's the whole point. It's not in the bag. It sounds good, but I think with Agatha coming up in the Drowned City, we get a little bit more value from it, and I'd like to revisit this card in one of her decks. But so far, it's just kind of been okay.
I also brought this one to a recent Patreon game day where I was to support Father Mateo, and being able to use the Jewel of Aureolus to draw, like to just keep these in play was really cool. I do want to give that one another shot with Parallel Father Mateo, because as far as I'm concerned, he changes the value level on each of these cards, right? Because again, you get your Jewel Aureolus in play, you're guaranteeing 2 resources a turn, right? And like, while also getting like, I don't know, maybe like a just pure value on top of it out of like your Read the Signs, your Spectral Razor. So I'm curious to give it another shot there, but I do agree, like I feel like Sealed, unfortunately, has been kind of cast aside since Forgotten Age, right? And it's cool that we finally have an investigator that cares about it, because it means we might get some more cards that actually make a reason that you want to would do these effects.
Yeah, and I think 1 XP cards in general have the difficult prospect of taking up a card slot in a card game that has so many cards that are so good that you're giving up something by putting it in your deck. It better do something for you. And in this case, maybe. I also didn't play it before all the symbol taboo stuff that you're kind of referring to as well, and more support for let's seal something that's not one of the symbol tokens, so you draw those more often. I think that's pretty cool. Tough to take up an arcane slot for it, but maybe with the events now it makes more sense. Yeah,
it is like that's kind of the issue, because it's kind of like you fall into just support, because like then even those events you have like your money that you put into your events is going into paying for your protective incantation, right?
That's true.
So you need like to build a resource engine, like, because you can't just get resources, you need to have like a resource engine to take advantage of it. Yeah,
it will take up one of your occult reliquary slots now, because it is blessed, so that's nice that's there. But yeah, I don't think this is unplayable. It just feels like I need to give it another shot in a home where it's really focusing on exactly the things you're talking about.
Yeah. All right, my number 4 is Underworld Market, the recently tabooed Underworld Market. So this is just my approach to deck building, but I've seen so many people online say that this card is like an auto include. And I just never got it. Because my idea is, how many illicit cards of those 10 do I actually want to run, right? Like, that's kind of like where my thing is. If the answer is less than 10, why would I play this card, right? So, like, that's like my personal definition of Underworld, like my issue with Underworld Market. With that said, I do want to try this one a second chance where maybe I don't go as Justin brained for it and try to just like use it to find my good card, right? To just like have it be a little bit more consistent. Because the thing about this card that I can see why people think it might be an auto include is because there's a lot of good cards in this game, and having 10 more cards in your deck and 10 cards out of your deck that you're just fine with drawing just means that you get to play with more cards, right? And that's exciting and cool, and potentially, if what people are saying is true, very powerful. For me, my sticking point is, again, that just like those, if I'm putting in like 6 cards that I don't want to play, I'm actually just making things worse. And also, I'm addicted to the drug that is Lucky Cigarette Case 3, because I still think that's the strongest card in the game, and just does this as well. But I also have to take a second. I don't like the taboo that happened for it. I feel like if this was printed at 6 XP to start and you did not need to spend a resource, we would be looking at a much better place for this. But unfortunately, as it is, I think now at 6 XP, it's a little bit overcosted.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening in the Drowned City box that merits this.
Yep.
We've been told that it may have been Lucius, but okay. Doesn't make any sense to me yet, but maybe it will.
And if it was, I would rather it have been after the box came out, so we could have experienced the thing and like been like, oh yeah, maybe this should be changed, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess there was a theory in someone in our chat who said there's going to be a lot of new illicit cards, so maybe you don't need to run bad cards to fill out this pad, right? But who knows?
To me, this has been competing with Bewitching, because I feel like it does something similar, where it's giving you another way to get cards from the beginning of the game. And I always like this better, because I'm one of those people that says, yeah, give me 10 more cards in the deck.
Yeah.
I would like to get them all in play, please, and Fence and whatnot helps you do it. The one resource in Rogue isn't that big of a deal, but I've had to keep myself from putting this into my every Rogue deck that can take it, just because I love that other stack of cards to pull from.
Yes, no, and I totally get that, right? Like, and that's why I'm even saying, like, this might be a reason why people really like it. Because I think it actually is, I think it's like obviously more consistent than drawing them from your deck, but I think it's less consistent than people give it credit for. But still also, more consistent. Still, I'm not saying it's like, yeah.
Like, I think if you need something out of it right away, you're still going to get, if you have 2 copies of each of them, it's what, by turn 5 you'll see everything.
Yeah.
That might be too slow. I don't know if I agree with that, but to me, I've always felt like my very first time I played it was a Charlie Kane deck, and I just loaded up the Underworld market with guns, and the regular deck was all the economy. So it felt like that made sense. I didn't care what thing I was drawing.
Yeah, you just needed a weapon.
Yeah, and there's so many good weapons.
Yeah, and I think that's like where my sticking point is, because like that makes sense to me, right? Like that makes sense to me from like a deck building, but like just like I've seen people just say, hey, put it in anything and you'll do better, and I don't agree with that yet, but that's why I want to give it a second chance and maybe just try it, and maybe I'll eat crow and be like, you know what, everyone was right. It's
also hard to evaluate it for me, because I'm not sure that I would play exactly the same deck without it, right?
Yes, yeah.
So I don't know if it's adding, if I could do the same thing without it, right? I'm doing something different with it, which is a good spot for a card.
Yes, I know. I do think it's like that's also kind of like why I'm bummed at 6 XP, because it doesn't feel like a 6 XP card. But at the same time, I think if it came out at 6 XP, everyone would be like, yeah, this is a 6 XP card. But because it's been 4, people are like, yeah, the change is tough. All right. What's your number 4? It's
Scrimshaw Charm. Okay, funny story. The only time I've ever played this card was when we played our sealed deck through Edge of the Earth.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was really bad there. I'm not even sure I played it, because I looked at it and I said, Winifred and Charlie Kane, if you haven't seen that. I was like, you know what? This has to go. I cannot take the actions to put this down and spend actions to put curses in. We had it wasn't. They were not curse decks. Like they were decks that had curses flying around because of a weakness that I had and Faustian Bargain and whatnot. But it was not decks that were designed to overcome the curses. So I looked at this and said, "This is awful. Give me another way to get resources, please." And that was the only time I played it. So I need to revisit this in a deck that is properly taking advantage of what it's trying to do, which is not just, you sit around and try to compare it with Faustian Bargain. That's not the point of this card, right? The point of the card is to consistently add the curses into your chaos bag for that team. The resources make it just so that that's not one action to put a curse in. That seems terrible.
Yeah.
So I want to try it out where it's actually doing the thing it needs to do.
So I've only seen Scrimshaw Charm be played once, and I am now convinced that it's game warping. If someone is playing Scrimshaw Charm and they're a big money deck, congratulations, your whole table is now curse. Like you need to you can't play this card just to get economy because it'll warp the game. You need to either be like a big money curse deck or don't play Scrimshaw Charm. It's insane for that kind of reason. And I think we're going to see this card. If I'm going to wager, I feel like one of us is going to play it when we do our paradoxical run. Because I'm already like, I would love to play this in Dexter Paradox because the curse generation and money you get out of it is like seems insane. Yeah,
that's all. It's kind of a dumb story, but you've played a lot of cards in strange places, right? That were not built around them per se. And I don't usually do that, but when we played Sealed, there were a few cards where I'm like, well. This is all I have. Yeah, and I get it. You want to give it like a fair shake to see what it's like in a constructed environment as opposed to like a limited environment because it is completely different for that. Yeah. All right. My number 3 is Abigail Foreman. I don't think she's bad. This isn't one of those where I think like she's pretty fair appraised, but I actually have not played an Abigail Foreman deck outside of when I did it in like standalones because of just wanted to try something out. But I've actually never played Abigail in a campaign environment. I blame myself. Dr. Malone Christopher is just too easy for me to see my book number go up, right? He's also 0 experience, which means I can buy other cards instead. But I'm doing a video that's coming out on Saturday, which is a Rex Murphy deck tech where I built around secrets and Grim Memoir and Abigail Foreman, and I was like, this seems like it'd be a really fun thing to actually try. So when I say a second chance, it's really kind of like a first chance, even though I've played with her and I know she's good. I haven't experienced her in the campaign format, which is a lot different than standalone format, like incredibly different, because, it just is. That's just how it goes. Yeah, you need to build around this, and it's not something you put around in your deck in scenario 2.
No. Yeah, no, it's like I think luckily Grim Memoir did make it so that you can get her in quicker because you have like a level 0 tome that you can take advantage of. And it also probably made it so that it's a bit more exciting to also do it outside of Daisy. I think that's something that Abigail Foreman and also just like tome synergy in general had for a long time, which is that Daisy Walker kind of just like monopolized it, but now I think it's starting to open up to other people as well.
So this came out in Dream Eaters, right?
Yeah.
So was Mandy playing this at all?
No, not when it was first released because Mr. Rook was too good. That was certain. Look at 9 cards, grab 2 of them. Like that was just like an insane effect. But that was kind of like it pushed it out. It was. I think Bryn probably talked about like doing it with like Old Book of Lore and Mandy, but even then, Mr. Rook was just 0 XP and just better.
Yeah, because that's 3 XP for the upgraded Old Book of Lore as well.
Yeah.
I played this in Daisy and nowhere else. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this with Rex.
Yeah. All right. Your number 3 is...
All right, Hiding Spot. So, I played this recently, like really recently, with Parallel Ashcan Pete. And I know it's supposed to be really good. The problem was, every time I had this in my hand, I drew Amnesia next.
Oh, no.
This was a horrible deck for Amnesia. I mean, you want to get the events back in your hand and everything, and then they just go away. I mean, it was awful. Also, I played it through Carcosa. I just felt like I was using the guitar way more. Every time I thought about, do I just put this on the board and walked through a spot that, had some enemies, I was like, or I could just use the guitar and hunt it the other direction.
Yeah.
So I know everyone talks about that this card is really good, in Ashcan Pete in particular, and I still think that's the case. I just had a very bad experience. I need to get another second shot because, like I said, most of the time it was just immediately hitting the discard pile after I brought it back to my hand in one round. I was just like, God, I'm not experiencing what I'm supposed to be experiencing with this card in this deck. And yeah, the guitar overshadowed it a bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's not hard for the guitar. The guitar is just like, it's a little bit much, but I think that, yeah, like, as we both know, there's a lot of variance in an Arkham Horror scenario. And I think that variance can impact the level of quality of a lot of cards. And I think Hiding Spot in general on Ashcan Pete is one of those things. Like, to me, like, if you're playing Hiding Spot on Ashcan Pete, you have to be like, I'm not killing a single enemy. And, like, it's like in 2-player. Like, no enemy is dying today, right? Like, except for the elite enemy. And that is a problem I'm going to have to figure out in the future. But then, like, again, if you only see like one enemy at a time, if there's not a lot of hunter enemies, this card can fluctuate wildly because of that, right?
Yeah, I think I need to do more work in watching other people's playthroughs because, I mean, I cleaned up in the campaign with a very limited card pool. It was really good, but I also paired it with Finn, and that might not have been a good idea. So there's some of that.
It is crazy, and it's so impressive, and it's why I think talking about this game is so fun. There's a lot of different variables that can really just change things. Like, even just like the investigator choice in a campaign can change the power level of a card. And that's why I personally think the conversation is more interesting, and I think you become a better player when it's not of this card is always good. It's just like, why is this card not maybe the best choice here, right? It's very interesting.
A play pattern. Like I said, I would like to learn how to make this work better. And that means giving it another chance. I don't think it was bad. I just need to play it again in another campaign, maybe another pairing, and see if I can really play around using it better. Because it seems like it should work. I get it. I get the concept. But for whatever reason, there were too many elites, and I was just like, this does nothing. Or I could solve the enemies in other ways anyway. So
yeah, again, it's kind of like just like you don't see because of how everything worked. You didn't see what everyone else was praising about Hiding Spot. Totally get it. Yeah. All right, my number 2. I think this is another one that might make people. This is another one that people always say you have to put this card in your decks, and I never do, and it's Ancestral Knowledge. This is actually very similar to Underworld Market, right? So your deck must include at least 10 skills. No problem. I love skills. I'll put 10 in my deck if they want me to. And your deck size is increased by 5. Okay. It doesn't really increase by 5 because you're going to be removing 5 random skills from your deck to put them face down. Luckily, one thing that I think a lot of people do misplay, and I was not one of them, is you get to draw the skill of your choice. The cards put underneath it are random, but the cards that you draw are not. So there is that going for it. However, with all that said, I played with this card a few times, and it's 6 experience. Like, that is a lot of XP, and in my mind, it doesn't fall into the same levels that Stick to the Plan or Bewitching provides in terms of consistency. Because that's what this card is here. You might look at this card and be like, oh, it's a skill card. You care about skills. It's like yada, yada, yada. No, this card is about like just general consistency to draw the skills when you want to draw them. However, you don't actually get to choose the skills that you want to go underneath it. So, like, yeah, it's just drawing 5 cards during the game. Do I want to spend 6 experience to draw 5 cards over 5 turns? And the answer to that is, unfortunately, no. I would much rather spend 4 experience to draw 3 cards fast. Like, that's fine for me. Like, that's kind of like the rate that I want. And Ancestral Knowledge just doesn't hit that rate. But I do want to give it another shot to see if, once again, if maybe I'm just missing something. Because a lot of people have said in our videos that Ancestral Knowledge is like a 10 out of 10 card. And I think it's kind of more personally like a 6 out of 10 card.
Okay, I think it's the same thing as Underworld support or market. If you have things you want to do in your deck and you don't have enough card slots for it, you put this in your deck.
Yeah.
Then you have 5 more slots. And it's kind of funny because if you don't have the 10 cards, or if you have 10 already, you can start adding some level 0 stuff in for no XP cost.
Yeah, which is
feels
nice,
like it balances out some of the 6 XP somewhat. Is this like gonna make your deck better? It makes it probably more fun because you can include more toys. The same thing I think with Underworld Market. But you could also put in 2 copies of Studious, and that's probably just a better overall
It is,
power
yeah.
for your deck. The consistency you get for the opening hand and whatnot is unparalleled, I think.
Yeah.
But I put this in my decks all the time because I'm just like, I can't afford to get rid of these 3 cards that are already in my deck, so I'll just add Ancestral Knowledge.
And I think a lot of that, I think what you're saying is very true because I've posted a lot of videos about how I build decks and how I talk about decks, and a lot of people say they're like, how can you do this? Because I go up to 30. Like, me finding my last 2 cards is like the hardest part of my deck, right?
Yeah.
Where like going down is like something that I don't build for my style. So it makes sense that I don't resonate with Ancestral Knowledge and Underworld Support in the same way because just of how I build my decks, which is very interesting to think about too.
And I get it. Like, objectively, I can sit back and say, well, why don't you plan the whole thing out and you have just peak efficiency for a lot of what you're doing? We talked about this a bit earlier for a different video about having, a pretty clean 2 of everything and have a clear plan through your upgrades. But a lot of time that I play, I'm just winging it.
Yeah, yeah.
And at some point you say, gosh, wouldn't it be neat if I had some more skills in the deck? Because I only have 6.
Yeah.
I can put this in my deck.
And then you solve that problem. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Put a few more in. I know that the finale of this campaign cares about me over succeeding or something. Let's just throw in those copies of Guts and Perception that I cut after scenario 2. And there we go.
Yeah. And it really is a perspective thing too, because to me, Ancestral Knowledge is like, this is the identity of my deck when I see that card, right? But to other people, it's just a card that you can like tech in or just like get random advantage out of, which is really cool.
It helps that if you are getting a lot of XP in a campaign, that you might need to dump it into something, right? And this isn't such a bad way. I agree that Studious is probably the better call. But hey, why not both?
Yeah, I mean, in a high XP campaign, why not both, right? Yeah. All right, your number 2 is...
Okay, Elle rubash. I've played once with Amina, and I don't think I get it. I think that she's cheap, right? 2 XP, 3 resources isn't bad, but I consistently was thinking about how to use the Doom charms with Sin Eater rather than this. And it was easy enough for me to just remove the Doom. Why am I paying, so much XP in an ally slot for +1 skill value? I don't feel like the Doom on the attached asset, not counting towards the Doom threshold, meant that much. Like, you can float it for an extra round, but I don't know. I don't think I played that very well if that's what she wants to do. So I'd like to try her again, because I know everyone says that she's pretty good, but she doesn't, unlike Abigail Foreman, she's not holding anything for you, so she just clogs up the ally slot, in my opinion. That's kind of all I have to say. I'm putting my XP towards Sin Eater, not this.
Yep. I agree for the most part, and I'm like thinking of like when I would play Elle rubash otherwise. And the only problem with that is this is going to open up a whole can of worms of Marie Lambeau, because I think Marie Lambeau is where Elle rubash would actually really pop off, because you can get an extra action each turn without stress, right? The only issue is Baron Samedi exists, which means that Elle rubash actually costs 7 experience if you want 2 copies of her, right?
Yep.
And that is not cheap, because we actually talk about this in our Christmas tier list, that we all kind of agree that we're too hard on Marie Lambeau at playing board games. But I think that's a big thing, is that Travis and I, we're both big consistency gamers, and like there's so much like variance when how Baron Samedi shows up and what he can do to your game, right? And also scenario to scenario changes. And I think that's kind of just like a further exemplified by Elle rubash. It'd be really cool, but Marie Lambeau also can't go into the upgraded ones, albeit are the upgraded ones actually worth it, is a whole other discussion that we're not going to talk about here. But it is like one of those things that I just feel like Elle rubash is cool, but she's lacking that home that she's going to be like really consistent in to get there.
Yeah, I played Marie a few times since Elle was out, and I had the same thing. I looked at her and I said, nope, I can also deal with, the Doom in other ways, so I'll just do that.
Yeah.
I might be missing something, so I'd love to, get some comments and see how you've dealt with this issue, but I feel like I'm happy with the Blood Pact for Marie for putting Doom on something if I need to, and Sin Eater to get it off. I don't know why I'm doing this.
Is Sin Eater unique?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't think it is. So you could have multiple.
Because I was going to say, I feel like once we're done our Blessed Curse, we should do a Doom run, where we each play a Doom Dex to see what can happen with that. Because I would be down to explore it in like a campaign environment with Elle Rubash too. Because it's the same thing, it's like, I think like she reads really well, but I think that in practice, she's just kind of outclassed, or again, she's missing some of that thing that really makes its thing. I think that ultimately, while Scarlet Keys was the Doom set, it didn't actually add anything worth it to the Doom set, except for obviously Sin Eater.
So do you think the +1 skill value also is pretty minimal? I always looked at this and said, for 2 XP ally, I don't want more than that.
That's a great question.
I know that the 3 XP allies in Rogue give you +1 to 2 stats that you use for anything, not just resolving a skill test on that asset. That's 3 XP. But I kind of wonder if Elle would have been better as a 3 XP ally that did a teeny tiny bit more.
Yeah, like, I would be curious to see if she was like, because the issue with it kind of comes into thinking to the fundamental design of the Mystic class is kind of an issue, right? Because I think she would be a lot more interesting, for example, if she was, like, I don't know, like, even like +1 skill value, like, on the attached asset. If it was just like you get +1 fist, +1 book, I think that would be kind of interesting. Yep. But because the charms are designed to be used with brain and fist, or brain and like book, or brain and foot, it means that you kind of have to be only +1 skill value on the attached asset. Like, luckily, it's very easy to switch assets around with her. But at the same time, is it actually that easy? Because you have to get Doom on those assets, right? And unless you're Amina Zidane, you have to trigger it, and that usually means triggering it. I mean, you could like trigger it and then like swap it in the middle of the test, right, to like get the bonus on it as well. But like all that thing is like, it's a lot of stuff for potentially minimal gain. Like if she was like also like maybe a 2/2, you could talk as well. Yeah. Instead of a soak, but I feel like something happened in playtesting with the Doom cards that led them to be where they are, especially those charms. I personally think it is inexcusable that Marie Lambeau can't play the upgraded versions. Not that I think she would be great with it, but like the cards already aren't great, right? Like why, like this, like putting them to 4 experience unfortunately locked like an investigator who would want to play those out of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I find that I'm playing more events with Marie these days anyway, so...
Yeah, she works really well.
Another reason why this doesn't work with, with that ability. It's just those assets that are in play. So,
yeah, this was a great card for this because she almost, when I was going through, I was like, I'm going to choose her. I was like, no, but she was already on your list, so I think it's a great inclusion for this. All right, my number 1 card is another card that I don't know, I don't get it. It's damning testimony. I've tried this card out, like when I say give this a second chance, it's actually legitimately like a 4th chance. So I have this here too, so we can also talk about these. Like this to me reminds me of Fingerprint Kit, where like, do people know it costs 4 resources? Like that's so much money, and like that's the thing that I just can't get past. And like it's one of those things where like I even like putting experience into it, I'm like, it still costs so much money. I can't like see past it. And like, I'm going to cut this because I can get something that costs like 2 experience that to me does the exact same thing. Right. And like, it's one of those things where it does get better. I'm not going to deny there's some good stuff you can do with the upgrades, but like, even like having to spend 2 experience to get +2 book while investigating, right? Like already like that's a pretty big boost when I can just like, probably in the deck that I'd play this in, they usually probably have Seeker access, so I can play Grim Memoir and kind of do a very similar thing, right? Like, Ender's Play with 2 additional evidence on it is cool, but again, like, it's like one of those things, like, there was the one that's, like, pretty cool. I like the Surveil thing. I think, like, that's, like, a cool part of it, and I feel like I need to, like, build around one of that, like, that upgrade to do something. But like even like I don't know, I don't get this card. So that's why I want to give it like an actual chance where I don't cut it, but it's tough.
I think this is a great one because I forgot about this card. You know, it's just not on my radar anymore. I know when it came out, I read through the upgrades and I was just like, okay. Like the exposed one still makes no sense to me, but okay. I don't know. Like Trish is the home that I've heard about this. Like maybe Finn could do something cool, but otherwise, I don't know. Isn't there just something else you can do in Rogue that is similar enough? Like what is this getting you that you weren't able to do already? Maybe the remote investigate sounds cool.
Yes, like kind of like you use also like in the know with like Trish to do that kind of thing. Like that's kind of like the deck you build around. But I think that's kind of like getting a little bit on the jankier side because even like Trish, I agree, she probably seems the best of it. But you know what's also really good in Trish? Pretty much any other hand slot item. Yeah, it's just like she's just like really good at the game, and it won't cost her 4 resources to put into play. I think this thing died at 4 resources.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what killed this for me also is when fake credentials came out, especially the upgraded one.
Yeah.
That it's cheaper. You need an enemy. You have to be at the location with the enemy, but it kind of does the same thing without having the evidence spending.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. That's how I feel.
Yeah, like I see the whole thing in principle, right? But I don't like fingerprint kit because it goes against my playstyle of like what I want to be doing. And this seems like a very like a version of fingerprint kit that's like also I see it as equally not exciting to me. But
I like fingerprint kit, and I don't understand this card.
So I mean that's even more damning testimony against damning testimony, right? Yeah, that's like I think that's a great I don't know. If someone's watching and you have a deck that Damning Testimony did great in, please share it with me in the description because like I said, I do want to give this this is one that I actually legitimately want to try and like build around and do something with. I think maybe I just don't want to do a 2-handed solo because
I believe you can do stuff with the card. It's just I don't know what it's doing that you in Rogue that you weren't otherwise doing with other cards with the hand slot especially.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I can get rid of this. And why don't you close this out with your first card, which will be the last card, not your first card, but card number 1, last and first, existing in both spaces. It's
Persistence. I have played this card once, which is like a lot of these, I guess. And I'd like to give it a second chance. I guess that makes sense. It was in a Silas deck. And the idea was, hey, here's another skill that I could use for his harpoon. And I played it, and I was like, that's it? That's all I got out of this?
Yeah.
It turns out a lot of other skills are great in Silas and give you more than just +1. I'd like to try it in Min or something a second time, but in Silas it just felt like I was like, God, I wish I know how you have a tier in a lot of your card evaluations that's like I regret playing this. I'm not down on it like in a I wish this didn't exist or anything, but I regretted putting it in the deck because I felt like I could do so much more with that deck slot.
I actually had a very similar experience when I played this in Silas because like Silas's deck is actually like his skill slots are kind of a premium. Like you think he has a lot of them, and he does, but there's so many good skills that he wants to be playing, and this is not worth the experience in Silas Marsh. It's not worth the deck slot because like the thing is Silas Marsh has like a built-in persistence, right? Where he can like do his thing. In Min, however, Eric did bring this in a Min deck, and it was actually super impressive. Just like having an extra unexpected courage on command is a very nice thing, and like Min has a lot of draw, so like they can take advantage of it. I think also like a Min with like the Grisly Totem Seeker Edition makes this also really sick, right? Like being able to play that from your discard pile to draw a card and get +3 wild is like really impressive.
Ooh. Wow. Okay. So, yeah. I mean, I'm sold on the card. It's just that. Yeah,
your first showing was, that was my first showing too, and I agreed. I was even like, I don't think this card. I remember when it was spoiled, I was like, I think this card's pretty good. And then I played it in Silas, and I was like, I think this card is pretty bad. But then Eric played it in Min, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. So I also want to give it another shot too. I'm trying to think of someone else. I think like Barnaby is gonna like it. I think George Barnaby might want to take advantage of this too.
Yeah, because he might get this killed from a his Grim Resolve or whatever is that the weakness? The other one? Whatever the weakness is. It could
Yeah,
be
sat on the
underneath
boat.
him.
Sat on the boat. Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
It might get killed into the discard pile, and then you can just put it back into your deck after that. That seems pretty good. Committing it from underneath you also puts it into the discard pile in the first place. I mean, I think it's got a home. But for 1 XP, I said this earlier, I want my card to do a little bit more.
Yep.
And half of an Unexpected Courage needs to do more than that. So
yeah, you definitely, like, this is not like you need skill synergy. You need something to make it like, and that's why I think Min is really nice with it, because the Grisly totem, it turns it into card draw, which is really nice.
And I thought that was going to be the case with Silas. Like, he wants to commit something for the harpoon. He wants to have wild icons in the discard pile for his Elder Sign. But you know what? Silas has a lot of wild icons in his inventory. So
yeah. That's a good one for this, because I definitely agree, especially the Silas assessment. Yeah. Okay. That's it. We did that. Let us know in the comments what are some cards that you want to give a second chance to. And if you want to yell at me about my Underworld support, go for it. Underworld market, sorry. Underworld support's the one-ofs. But there's too many names in this game that are like blank and then a thing. There's just like too many that are like the same starting word. So
yeah, Arcane, Eldritch.
Yep. Yes, there's just too many of those. But thanks for watching. You should also check out a video in the description. I have a link to Quick Learner's channel. We have a video on there. It came out recently about us talking about the Blessed and stuff, and it was a really fun video to record. And can we talk about our gameplay video yet, when those are coming out?
Is this by next Wednesday?
This is coming out the 12th, so Thursday.
Nope, not yet.
Okay, but they're coming out soon. Ooh. We're doing a run together where we're playing cursed decks, and we have a cursed Daisy and a cursed Amanda, and it's been very fun recording those. So I'm very excited for y'all to see those. Very excited. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one, and as always, GG's.